Welcome to chapter number 4, lesson 2, finding bestsellers within a niche. In our next lesson, we're going to be learning about how to find opportunities in the niche. But before we get to that very exciting lesson, we need to talk about how to find competitors in the niche research. So using the keywords from our last lesson, which is the universal car holder for cell phones, you can see that the stats are really good for this niche. So let's go ahead and scroll down to the product list. It's very important at this stage that you have a mindset of a detective. You need to look for clues as well as important information, and then take all of that and analyze it, and then make your decisions based on that. So here in the product list, we have a few very important clues. We need to understand them, and we need to know what is more important from the other. So here on the left, we have amount of sales, as well as here on the right. And the amount of sales tells you how many times these listings sold. So as you can see, this first listing sold 756 times, and the second listing sold 631 times. Then here on the right, we have the price, which is the selling price of the item. This first item here sold for $6.55. The second item sold for $9.02. Then of course in the middle we have the titles for each item, amount of feedback, which is the feedback score for each seller. You can see that this first seller here has a feedback score of over 124,000. And the second one has a feedback score of 1,448. The third, also over 200,000. The fourth, 27,000. And the fifth, again, over 200,000. So already, just by looking at the amount of feedback, we can see that there are a few interesting sellers, even before we take the time to look at the amount of sales, as well as the selling price, and of course the titles. So just going back to the stats, and you can see that this universal car holder for cell phones generated a lot of sales, as well as sales earnings. So you can tell that it's a very interesting as well as a good niche. So going back to the amount of feedback. Now looking at this between this seller here who has a huge amount of feedback and this third seller here who also has a feedback score of over 200,000, there's this one seller in between them that has a feedback score of 1,448. So looking at it from this point of view, you can see that this seller is doing something right. He has a much less of a feedback score, but he's still number 2 on the list of eBay's top 100 items when it comes to these keywords. So you can see that this first seller here, with a very high feedback score, sold this unit 756 times for $6.55. Then we have the second seller here with a low feedback score who managed to sell this unit 631 times for $9.02, which is a higher price than the third, fourth, and fifth items of sellers who have a higher feedback score than he does. So this is how we find good sellers. We're looking at the number of feedback, the number of sales, the selling price, as well as the titles. And once we find a seller with low feedbacks, lots of sales, and even a higher selling price, we understand right away that this seller is doing something right. He maybe built a better title. He maybe chose a better item. Overall, he's doing something right. And those are good sellers. Those are the sellers we want to check out and follow. And how you're going to check this seller out is you're going to go to this icon here located on the left, which is Scan Seller. You're going to go ahead and click on that, and it will open up a new tab for Zeek Analytics for the competitor research. This seller has over 1,000 active listings, and the number of sold items in the last 30 days are 1,621. So when you make the right decision based on the statistics, based on the numbers, your results will look good. Another way to filter out the amount of feedback is by clicking on this star here. This will filter out the least amount of feedback to the most. which is another great and easy way to find sellers. Right away, I see that this seller here sold the same item as the first seller we were looking at. He sold it 115 times for $7.95, which is a little bit lower of a price than our number 2 seller. So here you can go ahead and click on Scan Seller as well to go into the competitor research and check out this seller and the other items he's selling in his store. You can do that a few times for other sellers as well. We have this seller here with a feedback score of 1,108. He sold this item here 157 times for $7.98. So let's say you come here and make a niche research. And you say, okay, this niche is interesting. Now let's see if I can find some good competitors. And if you choose to go one by one, yes, maybe you will find a good seller and maybe you won't. Then you are gambling. But if you take the time to read the information that is necessary and make your decision based on that information and the clues, you will then have better results in the long run. Due to the fact that you are saving time to make the right decision, you will find better products, better niches, and better competitors. As you can see, I found 2 competitors by just looking at the numbers and making the decision based off of that. So this is how you find competitors from the niche research. And that wraps up this lesson.